Welcome to episode 17 of the Arc-Aholics. Welcome to Arc-Aholics episode 17. Today we've got our fantastic panel. I'm Gecko, your host. Returning guests are going to be Debo from Debo TV. Say hello to our audience.
Hello, thank you for having me.
All right, and also returning guests, we have Fringe from the Fringe Patriot YouTube channel.
Hope everybody's doing fantastic. I'm excited to dive into some Arc Raiders per usual.
What kind of brand gaming chair is that, man? That's like probably like a super top tier.
Kitchen hardwood. I tell people all the time, if you guys want some of the hard cheeks, you gotta be sitting on hardwood. So we keep it hard over here.
All right.
Nice.
I'm gonna let the comments write themselves at this point. All right. Today we've got a fantastic set of topics. We got expeditions as well as free loadouts. Apparently that's kind of been ruffling some feathers from some people around the internet. So we're gonna have a nice little level-headed conversation about it. Chilling. Holidays kind of ruined our little weekly schedule, but we're back on it again. We're back on the rails. We're getting to it. All right. So let's start off with expedition. Right. Just a quick show of hands. Like I know the answer of the first question quite simply. Who here is doing the expedition? Show of hands. Correct. So here's the next question. If you were not a content creator, would you be doing the expedition? Show of hands. Yeah. All right. I'm the minority on this one. Right. I'll get into that in a second. Do you see yourself probably doing this multiple times? Show of hands. Okay. So I'll get to dive into some things here. All right. So, Debo, what's exciting you about the expedition? What's saying that like I want to do this?
Apart from the replayability factor, because to be honest, I'm at a point in the game now where I feel like I've done everything and getting back to that early wipe feeling. I know anyone who's played extraction shooters can probably relate. Getting back to that early wipe feeling is kind of like fun, unless you just don't have time, which is understandable. But if you do have time, it's fun to experience the early game again, try some of the lower tier weapons, go to the different maps for different workshop items and stuff like that. But mainly it's gonna be for the rolling upgrades that you get to your raider. Having extra scrappy materials, ironically, is probably the most interesting thing for me with this expedition process, because base materials have always been my biggest challenge, since the most things I get from raids are gonna be like guns and maybe a few blue or green materials, but I'm not always picking up like fabric or metal scrap. So having Scrappy be able to give me a little bit extra is going to be pretty nice. I'm excited.
Okay, PvPers are going to PvP, right? I think that's the difference between the stash. If you see me and my son's stash is very different. Like I have like maybe, I want to say 40, 50 guns, but I have like a metric load of like building materials, so I can literally whip out another 100 guns if I really wanted to. Whereas him, he's got like, I think he's counting up to 120 guns now. And very few of them are green and lower. So it's mostly just that's how he plays. And I guess that's how I play as well. What about you, Fringe? What is it about the expedition that's kind of drawing you to it?
Oh man, I'm with Debo on this. It's more so because we've just reached this point in the game where I've got nothing left to do. I have basically turned into a rhythm of running free kits constantly on Stella Montis, and I'm excited to, like you said, get back into the damn battlegrounds, looking for trinkets, looking for those a need to go and take out a leaper again, right? I wasn't going to do the expedition initially, but I kind of got hit with FOMO last second, again, because we are content creators. But even now looking into it, I would do it even if I wasn't, because the replayability in this game has just got its teeth so sunk into me. I want to run it back. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's fair. I think replayability is probably the goal of what the expedition was made for. I'm going to hit you with a couple of questions here. Now, both of you mentioned early wipe feelings. We had a Discord member of ours who, for work purposes, could not start the game until after like a month after it was released. So he came in rolling in with me and Grubs, who have been playing the game pretty rigorously. And within short order, we're running into people in our lobbies, and whatever matchmaking is occurring, there is some. You know, you can't tell me there's not, but there is some. What you use to judge it's another story. But you know, he's just started the game, and he's running to people with blue shields, blue augments, purple augments, green weapons, blue weapons, all that stuff. Like, he's right off the rip, right? And so this whole, I think it's a little bit of a fallacy to think that you're going to get that same feeling like you would at a full wipe from Tarkov, because everyone else, there's going to be a decent number of people who are not doing it, right? And they're going to run regular gear. That's my first take. Is like, I don't think you're really going to get that early wipe feeling that you like it was before. I think you'll get like a Diet Coke level type stuff. Like, it feels sort of like it, but not completely like it. And then the other take that I have, I want you guys to chew on, is that my prediction is this, and I've seen no one really else kind of talk about this, is you're going to see a tremendous amount of aggression within the first during that week of Expedition. And the reason why is you have a bunch of Chads who have worked their way through all of the content. They're done. They've done it all, right? And now they have nothing or next to nothing, which means everybody's a come up. Everybody's worth killing, right? And so at that point, am I off base here at this point? I'm thinking you're probably going to see a ton of aggression because of that. So those two things, let you go and chew on that. Fringe, what are your thoughts?
I think you kind of countered your, initial point there with your second point of the aggression, in the sense of, like, it might not be a full wipe feeling. But me in particular, I've always been fine running, like, even just like a Pharaoh 4, Stitcher 4. And like you said, every kill now is a come up. It's gotten to a point in time where, oh, okay, you pull a volcano off of a kill, sweet. Oh, you pull a bobcat, awesome. You've got bobcats in the stash, so it's not as exciting. Whereas on fresh loadout, if I load into Stella Montis with 18 minutes left, and I'm picking off bodies, and I pull a Toro, and I pull a medium shield, bro, I'm gonna be over the moon. I'm gonna be super excited. So that's kind of how I feel about all that. Might not be, like you said, that full community wipe, but I think the starter weapons are solid enough as is.
Oh, for sure. And then we'll get into that during the free loadout section. But I think you make a good point. I think you get that feeling back, but I think it's not quite the same, because it's quite a struggle, in the sense that it's going to be a more target rich environment. More people are going to be having blue shields. More people are going to have El Toros and like Anvils and Renegades right off the rip, as opposed to when you first started the game, when that wasn't really all that abundant. This time it's going to be. And so getting back to losing that feeling of newness is going to go away even faster this time around. That's just kind of like, that was kind of the reason why I brought that up. Debo, are you resonating with any of this, or just kind of just not hitting it right?
No, I'm kind of on the fence with it, because I feel like the most fun part of the game for me, especially with the gear that I interact with, is, like Fringe said, the earlier tiers of weapons. Like, later tier weapons are fun. But you can really get most everything done with, like, the Toro, the Anvil, the Stitcher, and the Pharaoh, if it's like a budget kit or whatever. But it just kind of makes the game, I don't know. I feel like it devalues the higher level of gameplay, the way they've kind of balanced the guns. And they've also put themselves in a predicament where they can't really change a lot of stuff, because everyone who's high level, for example, you've had a lot of skills that you've seen on the skill tree, where it's the sliding skill. You asked me the other day, do you like the sliding skill? Slip and slide, right?
Yeah.
Did you invest in slip and slide? And I forget whether I did or didn't, but
no.
whether I did or I didn't.
Yeah, you said no. That's whether you did or
Right.
didn't. But you said no.
But the point being, the skill is so negligible to where, like, the higher levels of gameplay, once you get those higher levels, the higher loot, I feel like the whole game is kind of watered down at the higher level, where more of the fun is kind of taking place at the lower level. The guns are good enough. The skills are good enough at the low level, apart from like security breach. So I don't know. I think I'll enjoy the new game again, but I'm definitely waiting to see what's in store in terms of, like, also new content that comes with the Wipe 2, trying out new things at a lower level, because we're also not going to try out all the same content that we had in the beginning. We're going to have, like, new map variants, and probably they're going to drop some new guns as time goes on. So
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I think you kind of hit on a couple of separate problems too that we probably can leave for another discussion. Being that the gear balance from top to bottom, as well as the skill trees, half of them are probably negligible at best. And so those are two probably big discussion points that there's going to be another episode on its own. But yeah, I can see the idea of coming, trying something new this time around. Like for me, I know I was very economically minded when I was starting off this time around. I basically stopped doing quests very early on once I realized I didn't have any XP for me. And so now, I'm probably going to focus more on that. Just kind of trying to do that more often. Just doing more quests. Just for something new, just for something different to do. I'm sure we're going to have new content. I'm willing to bet, and just see if anybody agrees with me. I'm willing to bet the new snow map variants and any other kind of updates are not going to hit during the expedition week, because they want to tempo out constant content, as opposed to kind of giving us a dead week for a week and then dropping it all on us on 1 week. They might hit us with the map conditions and other things next week, and then the expedition pops right after that. So I'm willing to believe that's probably going to be what it's going to be, even though there's an argument to be said. Hey, you want to like mass, hit people with like expedition and new content all in the same week. I think historically, Embark has shown they're more concerned with tempo than they are trying to hit everything all at once.
Personally, I would hope for something, a little something to come along with the expedition. But like you said, tempo's everything inside of this game. We've seen over the past week the game finally kind of hitting that downward trend on the 24-hour peak. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what that does, what the expedition does to that 24-hour peak. Because every time I go live, I jump in, see what the 24-hour peak was. We kind of been following this throughout the 2 months that it's been going now, for it to just now be starting to go down, and content's coming around the corner. It might spike right back up, and that is everything to do with tempo. So I hope they continue to keep it flowing that way rather than just dumping it on us. I see no need to dump it all at once.
I agree. I think a slow kind of content drop over time, sort of like a rollout over time, would be beneficial for people to not get bored, because a lot of people who play this game will probably be able to run through whatever they drop pretty quickly. So, pacing it, letting people try things, get used to it, and then giving them time to kind of get bored of something before you drop something else, instead of having them get bored of everything at once, or maybe not get bored, but just experience it all at once. It's probably a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I that's probably my take. I probably might be wrong, but I think just pattern recognition. Just that's my take on that one. In regards to what we're getting, what we're not getting, did a poll out there, and obviously the biggest pain point for a self wipe is blueprints, right? And it's an interesting topic because I've heard, rumblings in terms of like people trying to negate, because when we originally found out about expeditions, we didn't really talk about the very, very, very obvious way around it, is basically just giving somebody else your BPs, and then you wipe, and then they give it back, and then they wipe, and they do the exact same thing, right? We didn't talk about that. We even got some comments saying, "Hey, how can you not talk about that?" Because we felt it was so obvious that Embark would have something. There'd be some way around that. There'd be some way to kind of just like nix that. So far, we've heard nothing to stay that. We're seeing talk. I'm seeing talks of even alts being created, and it just comes down to the point where I'm thinking this from a perspective of, I'm wondering how Embark is kind of viewing that conversation, because if people are willing to go to such lengths and in some cases spend good money, basically double the price of the product to avoid said system, does that kind of tell you maybe that system needs to kind of like be tinkered around a little bit? That's just my vibe on that one. What do you guys think about that whole situation?
I personally think the blueprint system in general needs some work, not even just regarding expeditions, but I think in a game where everything is RNG based for the blueprints, it's kind of punishing to players who just get unlucky, quite frankly, because you can loot hundreds, thousands of containers. I haven't seen a single snap hook blueprint, and I've had friends who've gotten 2 snap hook blueprints over the wipe, and it's just, there's no way to guarantee, even if you run night raids, even if you go to these high tier loot locations, there's no way to actually guarantee you get these blueprints that are, and some of them might be essential for your playstyle. Say you want to run light weapons, you kind of need a magazine on a light gun, or else you're not going to be able to take on team fights if that's the only gun you have, or something like that. So I think it low-key does need some work, and I was considering it would be nice if you could craft blueprints. Like, say you found an extra blueprint and you broke it down to get like blueprint parts. You could sort of work towards getting, even if you needed like 10 blueprint parts to get a legendary snap hook blueprint, it would be nice to know that you're actually making progress so that you don't feel soft locked out of an entire. Because I mean, it's I don't think it's good that you have this entire expedition system with all its benefits, but one thing, which is the blueprints, prevents a lot of people from being interested in that.
Right. That is the main pain point that I've seen. There's very little other reason for anyone to out of all the things in terms of people saying, well, other than the fact that like, hey, I barely play the game, so I don't really have a reason to do expedition. Other than that one, the vast majority of people who are saying they're not interested is that's the pain point. And I think you had a really great suggestion. It's not so much about creating certainty, but it's not about being so punishing with the RNG that you can legitimately just be unlucky. To having a certain level of consistency being addressed to couple with that RNG. Like, I think the blueprint system in general is not horrible. It's just the way it's handled leaves a bad taste in your mouth, especially when you're dealing with like 8-week cycles. At this point in time, if you're someone who's going to be doing the expedition and you're certain blueprints that you haven't found, if you find them now, you're probably not going to use them. You're probably just going to hold on to them. Maybe like, all right, I'm going to find a way to smuggle this to my next raider going forward at this point. Whereas, like, say 3 weeks back, it's the opposite problem, right? It's say if 3 weeks ago I find like Tempest, Bobcat, whatever, or Snap Hook blueprint, I find those blueprints, right, and then I use them, and now expedition's coming up. I'm thinking real hard whether or not I want to do that now. I'm thinking real hard about. I'm probably not going to do it, because the odds of me finding one of those again gets significantly lower. And I'm like, dude, I worked all this time to get those things, and now it's just like I don't even get a chance to play with it, right? And so I think your idea is great. I've heard some other ideas very similar. It's not about removing the RNG. It's about just, making it slightly less punishing to the people who are getting very unlucky. What about you, Fringe?
Me personally, like, look, this wipe, my RNG was absolute trash. We had a hard time. We had a hard time this. So I'm not even worried about the schematics that I'm losing. When it comes to losing schematics in the wipe, I think it would be nice if they had a system where you could protect instead of having to go through this drop trading system and all this. You could just protect, say, 3 to 5 schematics, maybe dependent on your stash value. I don't know if we're going to talk about the stash value leading into the rewards later. If not, we should. I've got stuff to say about that. I think that needs reworked as well. But back to the schematics, if you could save just a few of these, I think people would be less worried about having to wipe all of their schematics. But me personally, I think when it comes to this drop trading system that people are working together here, I mean, for me, I've been talking about this on stream. I feel like people min-max the fun out of games,
Right.
because again, that's a part of the wipe and the excitement. And I've got a Venator and a silencer all sitting in my stash in case I decide to, which I don't think so. And I keep saying I won't be excited to get the Venator in the next wipe if we just drop trade this thing,
Right.
So
And I think that's a fair assessment in the sense that people who are doing that may be shortchanging themselves in
Yeah.
the long run. But and I don't think you're wrong. I think that I agree. I think it says something about the system itself that people are going to those lengths in order to avoid it, right?
Mhm.
Like, so from a design perspective of like, like when you have this common thing that's happening, the people are trying to circumvent. You're imagine creating content, right, and then people going out of their way, like, to do even more things to avoid doing that content because they just don't like doing that content. that should say more about the content than it does about the players themselves, honestly. In terms of the purpose for the blueprints, like I understand the design is very, very straightforward in terms of it's keeping people from muscling their way into getting basically the ability to craft absolutely everything, and therefore saturating the market, right? Themselves, as well as just running everything and then constantly losing and then saturating the market, right? I understand that's the purpose, but the same people who would be doing that you have to worry about are the ones trading with each other right now, right? So it's happening anyways, right? It's they're getting around that anyways, right? And that might sound like, for those of you who are listening, and that might sound like, oh, that sounds like a streamer problem, sounds like an employed problem, and things like that. That eventually will happen to you, right? We're just ahead of the curve on that one, right? So that will eventually happen to the point where it's saturating the gear so much that now you're dealing with those problems. So we're a little, I wouldn't say we're ahead of the curve in that one. It's just we're kind of just experiencing the pain points sooner than you are. And so I would kind of just, respect that, I think, in terms of just the majority of people probably are not running into these issues from my perspective, right? So we're talking about issues that may not be hitting people until maybe the next wipe or even further than that. But I don't know, Debo, I like your idea about just taking repeat blueprints and just, using some kind of refiner machine where you're just like, oh, cool, I'm going to refine this into bits and parts and throw it into an RNG machine, and just like, you might get another repeat blueprint, but you might get a whole new one. But what are you losing now? You're losing repeat blueprints anyways. And so that would tamper down the trade market a little bit, and is also kind of give you the opportunity to try to extra level of consistency to get those things.
I'll throw something at you.
Go for it.
It's kind of unrelated. So if anyone watching, excuse my tinfoil hat a little bit, but I feel like the way they've built this game really, it's like they've built multiple different games in one, which is cool. There's a diverse experience for a lot of different players. But I feel like you also run into a situation where everyone kind of is expecting different things from the game. You've got PvEers, you've got PvPers, you've got the chill people, you've got there's just a whole lot of variety in the game. And especially regarding, I think you said, there's systems that work against each other in the game. For example, the expedition system, right? You want people to be excited to wipe, but then you've also got the trial system where you have people basically not engaging with the game at all, the actual core gameplay loops that they find fun. You got people delivering carryables, for an extended period of time. And with the quests, you've got people doing like certain quests where it's like you just walk to this location, you stand here for a couple seconds, and then you walk away. Sure, you've got the NPCs talking and everything, but I don't really think that connects with like the player stories that make the game fun. A lot of the hype that comes from the game is when you have those voice chat moments, you have those moments where you're connecting with other players, and I feel like a lot of what they do kind of works against that. I don't know if you found that experience too.
I'm not sure about that. I think it really depends on a lot of factors. Some people will say, swear up and down that, oh my God, the game's getting so much more hostile than it was before. Like, I'm still getting friendly lobbies. I still get lobbies where it's just straight up deathmatch. I think you nailed it on the head, where people expect different things from the game, and they feel like what they expect should trump everything. When in reality, they should go into a raid clean slate. It's going to be what it's going to be, right? And you can try to force your way into a certain play style and force your way into a certain way of thinking of what the game should be. But ultimately, no matter how you approach it, I think you're going to be disappointed. Whereas if you just take it as an open experience, you're always going to have something to like look forward to. Because like, all right, new raid, new me. Let's find out, what we're gonna do, which is why I think some of the suggestions I've seen people put out there are just veiled attempts to curve the game into something they want. Things like bounty systems and things like that. You're just trying to curve the game into something that you want it to be instead of something what it is. But it's Fringe, what are your thoughts?
No, I kind of get what you're saying. I kind of get what you're saying there. You know, but that's kind of also what at the end of the day makes all of the magic happen. When you have the players who are out there for some reason delivering field crates for 30 minutes that get mad at you on voice chat when you shoot at them, or you have these people who are like, I'm just trying to do this quest, please, and they again get mad at you when you shoot at them.
And just to piggyback off of what Debo was saying here, like I think it's an interesting take where you have this way of looking at the game that just ends up having this conflict and they just kind of struggle with each other. You have people who are either actively avoiding trials or they're actually trying to do exclusively just the trials. And you have Fringe over here coming out of nowhere and just pop at them in the face, and they're going like, "Bro, I'm just trying to do my quest. I'm just trying to do my trials, man. Why you gotta be like that?" How often does that occur to you, Fringe?
It happens often, and that's kind of the magic inside of the game also. You know, you get those situations because there's this multitude of different players. And it's not always like that. Sometimes I'll run up on a multitude of solo players that are now teaming together. They're all in the voice chat having the time of their lives. I still go shove my nose in the situation, but I get my teeth kicked in by 5 people. And those situations happen because there's such a variety and diverse group of play styles.
Right. And I think that's the key. I think sometimes people forget, that's required. Like some pain at that point is required. You can't always have the raid that you want. And that's what makes the raids that are good for you that much special, that much more special, because they don't always happen. Right. You're going to have those adventures. You're like, man, that was kind of a rough one. Whereas like, dude, that was like the best raid of my life. And in the dichotomy, I mean, if that doesn't sum up extraction shooters in a nutshell, I don't know what does, honestly. With that in mind, let's talk about real quick about some of the things that are we saw like last week. They announced that the new, because previously it was supposed to be that things like buffs and extra stat points, things like that, were only supposed to be available for the next wipe, quote unquote, next wipe. Now they announced they're all permanent. These buffs are basically permanent. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, increased stash space, increased XP gain, increased durability, repair, and a possible 5 extra skill points, up to a 5 extra skill points for your character after that. Am I missing anything, guys?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. So that's the incentive that people, or that's the carrot that they're using. I'm going to be doing it primarily because my channel is based off of, kind of guides and just kind of like giving people a heads up of like what they're about to experience. And so there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be doing it this time that might be in a position to do it next time. And so obviously I want to give them my experience. Like, hey, this is what happened to me the first time. This is probably what you can expect. But other than that, I don't personally find that as a big carrot. I think the replayability in and of itself is the biggest carrot, like you guys have stated. Out of all these benefits, Debo, which one's really the one that you're looking forward to the most?
Probably the stacking skill points, because over time I'm assuming that means you're going to be able to, depending on how many expedition cycles there are, if they do it every 8 weeks, then over time, like by this time next year, you'd probably be able to have most of the skill tree done, if not, close to all of it. But again, I'm looking forward mostly to the replayability, because the skill points, a lot of them, like even with only 75 skill points, I was happy kind of with where I was at, because a lot of the skill points are kind of negligible. So I think that, and then also the secondarily, probably the extra stash space. There's a lot of good ways that you pointed out in your video on stash management, but aside from those points, there's a lot of good ways to make the most of your stash space. So stash space also isn't really the most beneficial. Like you said, these are kind of like little benefits maybe to push you over the hump, but they're not really like so good. It depends on how much stash space they add, but if it's like an extra 50 slots, it's like, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like you've hit on a couple of different things. For example, like the skill tree one. Like I'm right now doing research in terms of just how to do on the skill tree itself, just to kind of just create a updated version of the skill tree guide that I put out. And so I'm finding that 75 points, like after that, you're kind of going, what do I spend points on? And it's not because you have too many options. It's actually have a lack of viable ones. So at that point, it's like, what am I gonna do with the extra 5 points that are really gonna make a difference? Particularly if you're not jamming out 70 to level 75 or 80 at this point within the first few weeks, which case those extra points don't really matter anymore. Plus, also you get extra XP gain, so you probably gonna get to it more often. But whatever. Fringe, what about you, man? Out of all those things, is anything in there that's going like, hey, man, I really, really want that in my life?
I mean, look, I don't know about anybody else. Maybe somebody in the chat will be able to relate with me on this, but I was always under the assumption that these buffs that come from the expeditions were going to be permanent, because I swear that leading up into the game, they said that these expedition buffs were going to be small, but they were going to be compounding, which to me made me think that, there's maybe going to be 5 expeditions where you're going to be able to benefit from wiping and getting those 5 skill points, but then after that you're no longer going to get skill points, so you might only cap out at plus 25 extra skill points after 5 expeditions, right? That maybe somebody in the chat can relate with me. I swore that's how everybody's like, oh, they're going to be permanent, and I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? They were always going to be permanent. Is what I thought. But when it comes to the what I'm looking forward to the most, I think the best thing that they have to offer there is the skill points. I mean, some people might like aren't they offering cosmetics? Some people might get into that, but skill points basically is about it.
Yeah, and like I've just stated before as to why that doesn't even register for me. And so,
but if it's 5 times over and now it's 25 extra skill points after 5 compound, does that make any extra difference?
It used to say in the Army, 60 pounds of lightweight equipment is still 60 pounds. So it's 25 extra points versus 5 extra points on skills that I could do without. Doesn't register to me. Like, it's just like,
you're right. You could do without any of these skills almost.
Right. So the first 75, if that's my issue with the skill tree, which is another conversation in terms of just like, I don't feel like I'm really being given compelling choices as to like which one I want, which playstyle I want to have. I basically can get everything that I want to get that's viable, and everything outside of that isn't viable enough for me to consider, for the most part, or just such a low grade of like effectiveness, like slip and slide, like Debo was saying, like that you can barely notice it if someone put points into it, right? And so it's just little things like that. Go for it, Debo.
I'm also kind of wondering if this was intentional, or if it had forethought applied within Embark's creative process. But I feel like it's kind of tough now too with the skill points. Where, do you remember when they nerfed Security Breach? Like, nerfed, it didn't really feel like much of a nerf, but everyone who grinded to level 36 in survival was like, oh, you guys, we just got this, or we're just about to get this, and now you nerf it.
Well, to be fair, it was busted first. Now it's still really good. Like, it's still really good. That's not busted anymore.
And I don't have a problem with them, making changes to the skill tree where needed. But I think right now, personally, there are a lot of needs for adjustments within the skill tree. But then that introduces a problem on the creative side for them, where do they adjust the skill tree and risk upsetting the people who aren't going to expedition because they've already have sunk cost into those skills? Or do they adjust them for the overall health of the game, but then you've got people who might leave or people who might complain and start creating a narrative around the game? And then on the player side, you don't only have, I don't want to lose my blueprints, but you have, do I even want to expedition because all of these skills are gonna be changed now? And that's not why you should want people to expedition. It's because you want the gear inflation to not be a big issue. So I don't know if they thought of the game balance in terms of like restricting the expedition or not. Do you think they did, or do you think they're just gonna leave it and just hope for the best over time?
I mean, Embark have shown themselves to be extremely capable as developers. They're not infallible though. I think one of the cracks that you can kind of see was the release of Stella Montes, is that they completely underestimated how quickly players would be able to unlock that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why you don't see complete clarity on certain things. So, for example, we don't know for sure what you actually need in order to get the top 5 skill points on the expedition, probably because they haven't set a number yet. They're looking to see. right? They could have said a number privately, and they're like, let's see if the players overshoot this, like they did for Stella Montez. And they're keeping it to themselves because they don't want to set it too low or too high. So that's kind of a smart on their end. Same thing for the skill tree as to why they don't have certain values displayed, because it actually allows them to tinker with it in the background without letting anybody know, so they can kind of see, certain effects and things like that. But even still, I think you've when it comes to this, I think the respec is going to be a motivator for a lot of people for their first time expeditioning, right? Because it's still new. The game. This is going to be our first expedition at a launch, so there's a lot of there was a lot of unknowns that are now known, right? And so in terms of people knowing what skills are just worth it and which ones are not, which ones are just duds, they're going to be doing that a lot. They're going to be like, all right, I'm respecing. I'm doing expedition just for the sake of respecing. I don't care about the extra points. I just want to respec. And so I feel like respecing is a huge carrot to get people to want to do that. And if they were to, say, rework the skill tree in its entirety, like just not in its entirety, but just like, hey, we're going to make some things, we're going to change some things, whatever it is, you obviously have to give people the ability to respec and redo their points, right? Especially if you're going to move things dramatically, like the things, in my opinion, you need to move certain things dramatically. Hot take, I don't think the 2 best stamina points in the game should be readily available at the beginning, right? Because it makes them low value, because there's, in terms of so even if you just move a node from one place to another, that demands a respec at that point, because you're changing basically your positions or your points are going to be. So it's a very hard position for them to be in. I see them doing it, just not yet. With that in mind, though, right? It's okay. We have the respec of the expedition. There's also I actually didn't understand this in terms of the expedition as well. It said on there the things that you lose or the things that you keep is your workshop, is your unlocked workshops.
No way.
Right. Here's the thing. Here's the problem though. What I did see. Don't be dancing too quick now.
What?
The things that you don't keep are workshop. So okay. So on one side it says workshop, and then the other side it says workshop unlocks. So
you messing with me?
It's levels, right? It's levels versus.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, it was just levels, right? So that means you basically just revert back to level 1 on all of them, right? So it's kind of confusing. It could literally be level 1 to all of them, or it could literally be like, cool, well, you have them unlocked. We had them unlocked to begin with.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
right?
You did start with no workshops and you had to put them up in there at level 1. Oh,
right.
So they reset to 1.
Right. So to me, that's an even bigger hit, because at first I was thinking, okay, well, at least I have all my workshop level 3, which case, as soon as I find a blueprint, I can use it. Right. But not so much. Right. So now that's even a bigger hit in that regard. I think it's probably better because it probably gives you something to do, honestly, because upgrading workshops is one of the most driving factors in terms of activity, what people were doing. So that's the one thing I didn't understand right off the rip, and I only kind of like understood that within the last week or so. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. I don't like it, but it makes more sense. I was thinking like, well, dude, I get Arpeggio level 4 like right off the rip anyway, so like, let's do it.
I'm curious what you guys feel about this when it comes to the stash value being tied to the reward. You need a specific stash value to get the reward. My argument here, and I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are, what if we moved that into something else? What if it was quest completion? Did you complete all the quests? Then you'll get the maximum reward. Or the amount of schematics or blueprints that you're giving up. Are you giving up 40 blueprints? And that might be a bit controversial because RNG, bro, and I've gotten screwed. So I'd be getting like 1 skill point if I reset, if it was on blueprints. But with those being what you're giving up, it almost feels like maybe a little bit more fitting. And sometimes the stash value becomes like an arbitrary number. People are sitting on tens of millions at this point in time because there's not really a whole lot to spend your actual monies on. You know what I mean? Unless you're pumping out shields from the clinic. So what do you guys feel about like possibly moving the what actually dictates what rewards you get?
Debo?
I get your point with making it more streamlined to, I guess, more I don't know the word, maybe like relevant things to the gameplay loop, such as questing and like you said, but At the same time, there was a Shroud clip that I saw on my timeline the other day, basically of him saying he said screw trials, right? He at a point, even though he's a high level player, he has time to play all he wants. He's still someone who doesn't want to do trials because that forces him into gameplay that he finds totally boring, you know?
I can
And I
relate.
think sorry?
I can relate. That's basically how my
Right.
feelings are on it.
Same. Same. And I think the benefit with having it be money based is you can get money a variety of different ways. If you want to quest and as you're questing, you want to loot, maybe you're a more peaceful player, you're like a harvester type of player, or if you want to do PvP and sell the guns, or if you want to farm Stella Montes and sneak around and find those blue and purple recyclables. The money gives you the opportunity to play how you want. I think the problem would arise if they were to force people. Because I'm not gonna lie, if I had to do all the quests right now today, like or before the end of the expedition cycle,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
already so bad that I gotta lose my blueprints. I don't think
Yeah.
because I think they should make it as easy as possible for people to do expeditions because you want the gear inflation to for it not to be a thing as much, and that's why you're doing the wipes. That's like the main purpose of the wipes anyway. So I don't think they should have too many. I don't think they should try to funnel people into gameplay that they won't find fun. I think I understand your idea, but I would personally not expedition if I had to do certain things.
I mean,
I totally agree with you.
I
Oh,
think
sorry,
you
go
hit
ahead.
no, I think you hit some good points there. Because for starters, let's look at the purpose of the expedition. It's to reduce gear inflation at the end of the day, right? And so, what's the best way of doing that? Is not necessarily just doing it based off of money, because I know it's total in terms of money as well as gear, right? And so that incentivizes players to essentially destroy equipment for money, right? But and then also limits in terms of what they can buy in terms of the shops. Not a lot, but it basically limits that somewhat. And then you have all this stash there. Me personally, I think it should be more value on the stash than it is on the money, because that further incentivizes you stacking up gear and then just all destroying it in the wipe, right? Further moving yourself towards the goal of reducing gear inflation, right? That's ultimately the goal, right? And so with however they want to measure that, you have to kind of keep that goal in mind, right? And the other thing as well is that what you were saying there is that you also have to kind of have multiple ways of getting there, because like you said, there's certain parts of the game, because it attract a ton of different types of players, certain parts of the game that you just straight up want to avoid because you don't find it fun, right? If you don't find questing fun, you don't have to. That's the strength of quests not giving you XP, is that you don't feel like you have to do it, right? And the fact that they don't give you rewards that are out of this world, again, makes you feel like you don't have to do it. Trials, however, are another story in terms of like just hit and miss in terms of the rewards. Some people are saying, oh man, I got freaking Bobcat, blueprints out of that sucker. I got purple augment blueprints, all things that are verifiable from trials. It makes people want to do trials. But what if they hate doing trials? So then they got to go through the blueprint system of normally what they want to do. And what if they don't like doing that because the RNG sucks for them, right? And so finding ways to make every aspect of your game approachable should be the goal, right? I think that should be like, hey, trials could use some tweaking because right now there are certain kind of repeatable events that people are just not into. They don't like playing that way. That maybe we try to have some more variety in terms of how that works out, in terms of the leaderboards and all that kind of good jazz, right? Then there's going to be the blueprints. We need to add another mechanism to have blueprints be a little bit more available, but not so available that it basically removes RNG entirely. Then you have quests. We're like, well, maybe the quests, we need to give them a slightly bigger carrot in order to get them to that, to engage more with that. Maybe the quests just aren't fun, right? These are all great feedback points, and I think the expedition is a great litmus test in terms of what people are willing and not willing to do again. Like for me, I'll probably end up doing the quest even more next time around because I really didn't do them. And I was kind of like, you know what? It wasn't, I kind of have fun doing quests. I'm like, just because it allows me to kind of just give me a direction as opposed to going, there's shots that way, go that way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you guys. The last thing you want to do is force people's hand in gameplay. And as a matter of fact, somebody came in my stream, I think it was last night, or the night before, and they were like, "Oh, did you hear that Embark said that you need to get all of the quests done to get the maximum rewards this wipe?" I was almost in tears, bro. I was almost in tears because I quit those quests a long time ago as
Yeah.
well. It ain't no way I'm getting ready to just hammer out the rest of them in a week. Ain't no way. Not happening. So I agree with you. I agree with you guys, but I feel like, something maybe other than the arbitrary number, but the freedom is there, and that's how it realistically should be.
Yeah.
I agree.
It makes for a better experience for as many people as possible. No matter what little individual things you have issues with, you're gonna be able to find a lot more things that you have enjoyment in. All right. So next topic of discussion is gonna be free loadouts. All right. I've been seeing a lot of rumblings on that. I think all kind of different takes. Right. But before we get into any of that, I want to get you guys' uncolored opinion in terms of just what you guys' take on the current state of loadouts. I've kind of heard a little bit about that from you, Fringe, but we'll come back to you in a second. Debo, what, in your opinion, what's the current state of free loadouts look like? Do you feel like it's in a good place, bad place, somewhere in the middle, some issues? Go.
I think free loadouts are a double-edged sword because just broad scope, I think free loadouts definitely make the game accessible to a lot more people who just wouldn't have the time to stack up gear, or maybe this is their first extraction game and they're trying to figure out how to be successful, and they're trying to use free loadouts as a vehicle to, improve their skills while they sort of build up a little bit of a stash. But on the other hand, it definitely free loadouts do kind of like introduce a griefing aspect to the game where some people just feel no risk. They'll literally just uh, straight up W key you, even if they're on fire, they're getting hit by a shredder in the back. They will kill you because they have nothing, though they have nothing else to do because they're on a free loadout, and you can lose all your gear. That's a big, I won't say problem, but it's a big reality on Stella Montes where pretty much everyone's on free loadout. If you bring gear, you're
You're the cow.
basically either gonna donate someone
Mhm.
an expensive kit that they might either sell or they might run it themselves, or even if you kill someone else and you wipe the whole lobby, you may or may not just come out with a bunch of free loadout augments, which you're not going to pick up, obviously.
Right. And bare minimum,
As
you
for the
might
free
break
loadouts
even.
themselves, sorry?
And bare minimum, you might just break even on all the ammo, the
Yeah,
meds, the
you might just break
durability.
even. It might just feel like a waste of time. But in terms of playing the free loadouts, I think they're balanced from the perspective where you can't really carry much. You're gonna come out of that raid with barely anything. So someone else who's not crutching the free loadouts as much is gonna progress in the game faster than you. But the fact that they're totally unlimited is also kind of strong because you can play the game with no risk at a point. So I don't know. It's double-edged sword.
Okay. Fringe?
I agree, man. Like, we can't get rid of the free loadouts
Yeah.
because of the accessibility that it gives players, right? But I think it's too rampant right now. I can basically free load out W key Stella Montes until I have the shredder behind me and I'm shooting at the guy for no dang reason other than to take him out all day, all night. And actually, I can't get out of that gameplay loop, man. Ever since Stella Montes came out, I've been locked in them hallways, I tell you.
Mhm.
But honestly, when it comes to the free loadouts, there's a couple of different things that they could, I think, easily do to reduce their usability for players who are not using them as a vehicle to progress. For example, if you were guaranteed a fresh raid on a kit that you put together, I would no longer be running free loadouts unless I was on Stella Montes because of the spawn rates. It has nothing to do with the time that you spawn in. If maybe they made it to where only the Rattler and only the Pharaoh, and maybe both of those weapons, like the free loadout was guaranteed to be a Pharaoh Rattler, that might be another way that I would be like, okay, I'm not gonna run free loadout because I don't want the Rattler in my inventory, right? Rather than just getting rid of it entirely, I think adjusting the balance of other like you were bringing up with earlier, people wanting to go about doing things, their specific way. This is kind of like another one of those situations, I feel like.
Okay.
That might not make sense.
Yeah. I think you guys both touched on the accessibility portion of it, and I think it comes down to what's the goal of a free loadout, right? A system. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be to keep people from bottoming out too hard, right? Ultimately, that's the that's the real goal of having a free loadout system. Is people who are struggling to like progress forward, and you're just kind of losing a few too many times. They're like, dude, I just need to go in with no risk right now because I just can't afford to lose anything anymore. And I think ultimately that's how the free loadout system should be geared towards. I don't feel like the loadouts themselves are too strong. I think that a lot of that comes from people who still have a tremendous amount of gear fear, in my opinion, right? Because I think I had a great example like last night, and I got jumped by like two people who had free loadouts, and because I didn't bring in a light shield, I brought a medium. Because I didn't bring just regular bandages, I brought good meds, and I didn't bring just gray weapons. I had an El Toro and a Renegade. I got jumped. Cool. I dived out. I didn't lose that much health because of the blue shield. Got re-upped again really fast because of and I was able to two pump them with the level 4 El Toro at that point. It's like bam, wham, bam. And so it's one of the things. Those free loadouts by themselves are not that strong unless you're running really low tiered gear. In which case you're kind of on par with them at that point. You can't complain that they're free. I'm like, well, run better gear, right? Stop having so much gear fear, right? Or run free loadouts yourself if you're still that afraid of losing, basic stuff. So I don't think they're as strong as some people make them out to be. But I do feel like certain guns, I think, for example, like the Kettle's completely like underrated right now. It's just stupid easy just to pump out so much firepower on that thing. So I'm not sure if it really belongs in a free loadout system, to be honest. But that's a whole weapon balance issue type thing. That's a whole conversation. But I think there should be some limits, right? Because it really comes down to, are people using them way too often? Because there's plenty of people like yourselves, like you guys talked about, I'm going to run in free loadout. I'm going to just push whatever. And these are people who probably have full stashes anyways. So why are they running free loadouts? Why aren't they emptying out their stash? Right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for me personally, the reason like I've been stuck in this Stella Montes loop, and like Debo was saying, if you're bringing gear into Stella Montes, you better be bringing a heavy shield and a Toro if you plan on surviving the
Well, you're
spawn
donating
rates in there. Yeah,
You're
and
donating
even
it.
with a heavy shield and a Toro, you're donating it.
Yeah.
So I've been stuck on this Stella Montes loop, and I mean that's just free loadout or give it away basically. And we do run in there sometimes and give away like 4 kits of Toros, but at the end of the day. What's funny though is like free kits. I don't run those on any other map.
I mean, because there's such a, and that's kind of the point you just made, right? They don't run them anywhere. Why? Because they're not that good, right?
Right.
They're not that good, and the effectiveness that you get from them, or from a really basic kit, even if you're rocking like light shields and like whatever augment you want to run, right? You can put together a significantly better loadout for a very low amount of cost. So why not? So why are we still running free loadouts in Stella Monte specifically? Because you can get, they're not as much of a liability because you can get right into the action right away. You can go to a come up right away, right? That might speak to the negatives of Stella Montes, right? And that's a whole other conversation again. But in terms of the free loadouts, I feel like it's one of those things where people who really shouldn't be using them are using them way too often, and there has to be a way to kind of limit that. You could probably do off of stash value or something, but like, I think that's really what the issue is.
Good.
I think that's really what the issue is.
Idea.
I think when people are complaining about free loads, I think that's really what the issue is. They're tired of getting jumped by rats that feel like they have no risk. They're tired of when they do win, they spend a bunch of ammo and a bunch of meds and durability on a person that didn't give them anything in return because they didn't bring anything. And I think that's pretty much what it is, right? And I think there's a small contingent of people who think they're too strong because they're not running gear appropriate to what their level should be, anyways. I think that's really what those really issues in terms of what people have issues with the free loadout system is, and that's just coupled with the idea of someone using it when they shouldn't be using it.
Yeah, I agree. Also the I think like you said, the stash value idea would be pretty good for all of its downsides, if anyone here has played Marathon, anybody in the chat has played Marathon, I think they had a pretty decent free loadout system where you get a loadout for free when you're pretty much broke, as it should be, because that's to help you, not bottom out, like Gecko said. And then if you start getting a little more money and you still want to run those budget kits, yes, they're budget pre-made kits and they might scale a little bit if you put a little money into them, but you might have to spend at least something so that you're risking something rather than going in with nothing. And like Fringe said, say you had a Pharaoh Rattler or certain budget kits that you could buy, how they like similar to how they introduced the free augment system with Lance, where you go in and you buy, the green augments and stuff like that. You could perhaps go into Apollo or Tianwen or somebody and, maybe buy a gray kit, and it's like a gray kit and it's simple, but it's just something. If you want to run a cheap loadout, because for me, I ran free loadouts just to basically get a warm up at the beginning of a session. Yeah, that's basically about it. Or if I'm just not feeling like re-kitting up.
What about let me tell you something real quick here, just to throw something at you. Like you just had the idea right now. Like, what if the free loadout wasn't free? You actually had to pay for it, right? In terms of money, it wasn't expensive, but basically it forced you to consistently have to start selling things from your stash to use over and over again. And you might say, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of bottoming out. But I'm like, you gotta bottom. I think only when you've bottomed out beyond a certain stash space does the loadout become free again.
Right.
You can bottom out gear wise and still have 300,000 in the bank, bro. And I'd be paying quick and easy 10,000 all day to guarantee a weapon in my free loadout. Like, you go in free, completely RNG. You might get the Rattler. Good job, good luck. Or you might get the Kettle. Or you pay quick 10,000. You get a Pharaoh Rattler. You pay a quick 15,000. Might be a bit much. It might be a bit inflated there. You get a Stitcher Pharaoh. Maybe an extra shield rather than the way it is. I think that's a really good idea. I like that.
Quick question. What if just rather than that, just based off percentage value?
Oh, that's nasty. That's nasty.
Because here's the thing: if you got $1 million, you have no business using a free loadout.
Oh, that's nasty. That's
right.
Nasty.
So like, cool. It's gonna be like
your cost me 100,000 for this free loadout.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
Hey,
right now, here's
taxman coming in. I tell you.
Stipulation. They have saved loadouts at that point, because at that point, one of the bigger factors of just not wanting to do free loadouts because you don't feel like re-kitting again. Right. If you can just press a button, boop, all my stuff gets put right into my kit again. I can do a quick loadout. It's stuff that's mine, but I can put it together like in one button or two or something like that, and I can do it quickly. At that point, I'm fine with going, cool. Your free loadout's going to cost a percentage of what you have in the bank, right? And obviously that scales. And at a certain point, again, you have no business using a free loadout. After a certain point, and I feel like that's kind of a good way of doing that. And then with the quick loadout saved, that can negate of the other factor of just kind of like, I don't feel like just sorting through my inventory and like making a kit now.
Totally. I agree with you too. It's on 4 out of the 5 maps. I mean, Stellamontis is free kid city, bro. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you're bringing anything more than a free in here, Stellamontis is a map I could just go mess around on. It is the PvP map inside of this game. So it's what I go mess around on. But yeah, you're bringing free kits into Blue Gate or Dam. You're massively, chopping yourself down at the knee with what you can carry, with what you can do. So
the key thing about Stellamontis that I just thought of, it's not so much that the free kit and that you can get into a fight faster. It's also that there's so many X more teams per square inch in that match that you're very likely to third party somebody with that free kit, right? And so it's not even so much like, oh, it's more useful suddenly. It's like that Rattler suddenly shoots, twice as fast and has a 3 times the size of the magazine because it's on Stellamontis. No, it's because you're more likely to be one of 5 other teams fighting that same 1 block radius.
I see. So I don't play a lot of squads. I run into Stellamontis solo, and I could run up to the security bridge in Stellamontis solo, sit there, and I will have dozens of people sprint at that location, fight and die for the entirety of the game with the way the spawns work. There's 3 spawns right by security, the one back over there, one back over there. There's just, it's like a constant influx of people. So I'm saying you take a heavy kit out there. I've taken heavy kits out there and wiped through 7 people. And the second I get into somebody's cheeks, there's some free loadout kit with a kettle who just takes advantage of an old man. You know what I mean?
That's the same problem. But that's literally the same problem, right? There's going to be 7 other people, all within a small block radius. Stella Montes. The reason why I think free kits are so effective on Stella Montes is because Stella Montes has its own problems, which is overpopulation, right? That's its own problem, right? And free kits just magnify that problem. I think.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, let's see here. From here to possibly next episode, we're looking at possibly some new events. We got some snow coming our way. You know, let it snow, let it snow.
Don't we have a Firefly fire strike event coming out?
Yeah,
some sort of event.
With some kind of event coming up. We don't know exactly what that is, but so far,
I haven't heard of that one.
The thing I would temper expectations on is that because it's more about flowing out content, right? You're probably going to see things like bunker that was disabled, mind you, because there was some exploits, but kind of like things like that. They're adding new map elements, little by little, right, to the point where it starts to become just part of the background noise again. So I feel like this might be more of that, right? Which isn't a bad thing, because you can still just jump onto your regular map, have your chill day, and then when you want to run something hard, you go to the night raids and you start going to like underground bunker, and you start going to like snow, things. Who knows?
Yes, the Flickering Flames event is what it is properly called, and you're right. It's probably just another little background trail that isn't much of an event, but it is like a little. Who knows?
Or it could be like Stella Montes, where it's like a community-driven thing, right? Hopefully they learned a lot from that one, and we get some more of that kind of thing where it's maybe a little more meaningful.
Speaking of new events, I don't know if you guys have seen this update that just came out. More of a dev blog type of update, but they actually just released. I'm gonna send it to you guys. They actually just released this whole dev blog talking about the permanent unlocks, temporary buffs, and some of the other stuff that they're introducing in the expedition. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, well, yes,
No,
they've laid
confusing.
it out. They've laid it out. All right, hold on, all right, so they've actually laid out in real time while we're recording this. They laid out the expedition. So the expedition project will now open on the December 17th. All right, so that's the actual start time, and it'll be open for a 6-day period in which your raider can choose to leave the Rust Belt for good. Fluff. All right, cool. So all items in your raider stash will be contributed towards it. Your next raider can earn up to 5 skill points based on the total value of your stash and coins at the time of departure. 1 million coins worth of value equals 1 extra skill point for your new raider. So we're looking at 1 million per skill point. That's what it's.
Does it cap?
Up to 5, I'm pretty sure. As they stated before.
I hope it caps.
Right. Let's see here. When you restart, everything tied to your progression will be reset. This means your skill tree, your level stash, workshop, crafting abilities, and blueprints. It's worth noting that the initial onboarding from your first deployment in Esperanza will be skipped. That means all maps and potential workshop upgrades will be available as soon as you reset. Okay, so it's basically like we discussed before, where you kind of have the workshops, but not so much the upgrades. You have them available. I'm not sure what have them available means, like as if there was going to be locked away, I guess. But permanent unlocks the patchwork raider outfit. So we do in fact get a outfit, the scrappy janitor cap. Okay, yeah, it's scrappy. Expeditions indicator icon. So I'm guessing there's gonna be some kind of icon on your player name or something that says, "Hey, I've wiped once before," which is good. I think that was always one of the things that needed to happen. Skill points depending on stash value, and plus 12 stash space. Right. So those are permanent unlocks. Now we get to temporary buffs. So these are temporary. So some are temporary, some are not. Okay. Temporary buffs, 10% repair buff. So we kind of knew about this. We just didn't know if it was permanent or otherwise. So 10% extra repair buff. So yay, I guess. 5%.
Wow.
5% XP boost. Okay. 6% more materials from Scrappy. Debo is He's
Disappointing.
satisfied.
This is very disappointing. I'm not gonna lie.
Disappointing. All right. Live reaction.
Yeah.
We're getting live reaction.
Live reaction.
He's not
be
excited
honest.
about the 6% anymore.
Nope.
Yeah, that's like chump change. What are you gonna give me an extra singular metal scrap instead of the 8 metal scrap
For
per
every
game? I'll get
100
9.
scrap, you get 6 extra.
Oh my gosh! I mean, that's like to get rid of my whole stash, all my blueprints for an extra 6 scrappy materials and 12 stash space. It's like,
especially considering these are the temporary buffs. I mean, they could go a little ham with these.
All right. Let's see here. So yeah, they do say that the temporary buffs will increase in power for every expedition after that. So this will work like they said before, where these start stacking. So the temporary buffs will start stacking up to 3 times. Looks like, so potentially up to 30% repair buff, potentially up to 15% XP boost, and potentially up to 20 or up to, my math is bad, up to 18% extra materials from Scrappy. Right. That's after like 3 expeditions at this point. Right. So there's a rolling effect, obviously. And then ultimately what they said is that why they are doing it like this. So it's kind of important to kind of denote this. Progression wipes are a notoriously difficult thing to balance in online multiplayer games. We get that. Mandatory global wipes have some obvious benefits. Heavily invested players get to re-experience the initial grind once again, and for a time the playing field is leveled. The optional expedition project is our solution to some of the problems that will inevitably arise with mandatory wipes, specifically by respecting your time investment in the game. We want to offer you the choice. Not completed as much as you like. Keep on raiding, building, and growing. Ready for a new challenge and grind once again? Depart on the expedition and receive buffs, rewards, and bragging rights. For now, the story is yours to write. We can't wait to see what you decide. Okay. So, live update as we're recording this.
Interesting to note here, too, that it opens up on the 17th, lasts until the 22nd. Everybody departs at the same time on the 22nd. I thought, I don't know if I was the only one who thought this, but I thought if you hit it on the 17th, you would be departing on the 17th.
Right. So here's my thing. And this is kind of, I think this would be the way of getting around people trading blueprints and holding onto blueprints, which means now legitimately the only way you can circumvent this is by having an ult. Right. Which is, I think, good, because I think that might be a step too far for a lot of people. Right. Whereas everyone knows.
Though? Hold on. Sorry.
Right.
How is this mitigated?
Right.
You can't just trade with somebody else.
Because if everybody leaves at the exact same time, someone can't be holding onto your blueprints for you. So you have to find someone.
Unless they stayed.
Right. So you have to find someone who's not expeditioning.
Gotcha.
Right. So that's the only way you can get around that. Basically, find someone who's not going on expedition, and then they can hold on to your blueprints while you go on the expedition, and then they can give you your blueprints, or have an ult. So the problem is that I think a lot of the people who are circulating with each other in terms of like blueprints and trading and trying to get ready for all that, they're all planning on expeditioning anyways. Right. So now they have to go find somebody who can do that. Again, not that hard, but I think you're just adding extra barriers to that, and it kind of comes back to that conversation that we had earlier about the kind of things people are willing to do to circumvent your system.
See, I forgot you pieced the puzzle together where one person trades schematics and resets, and then they trade off with each other. I forgot about that. I was always under the impression it was going to be people who aren't resetting or giving schematics to people who are resetting. I forgot about the sneaky methods that Gecko's pieced together.
I mean, I didn't piece that together, honestly. I was just one of those things where you just kind of notice the chatter online, and people are going like, well, I'll just do this, you know? And so it kind of, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes, because I'm curious to see how it all plays out in terms of the feeling of the wipe and whether or not I enjoy it. Because who knows? Maybe I start over and goes, dude, I'm addicted. I want to do this again. You know, I want to do this sooner. You know, like, who knows? Maybe I turn out that way. Maybe I'll just go, yeah, that's it for me. I'm not gonna do that ever again. Or not until at least another few months from now. You know,
man, I must have had a dream. I swore I saw, the reason I was saying this cosmetics are coming, because I swore I saw a post where they showed off an image of the cosmetics in this. I could never find that post when I was trying to find it. So I don't know if I dreamt it or what, but I knew cosmetics were coming. All right.
Yeah, they had to be coming, because that's some kind of level of motivation, right? Like, some people will do it for the cosmetic if it's.
They sure will.
Right. So we'll see. I think it's going to be an interesting time to do all that. I think next week we'll see the events. I think the week after that we'll see the expedition kind of fully go in to full swing, and we're going to get a chance to see what's what, you know. And I'll be glad to have talk with you guys after that to see what your guys' feelings are on that. So with that being said,
should be good.
Yeah. So that being said, I think it's a great time to kind of wrap it up from here. I want to thank you guys for being part of the conversation, help keeping this going. I want to thank all of you guys who are listening, all of our listeners, our audience. Debo, what you got coming down the pipe for us?
Honestly, just having fun with the game. I think the game is there's a lot of variety to be had. So just having fun, sharing my experiencing with the chat. Yeah.
All right. Fringe.
Constant live streams. We be pumping out the live streams, and from the live streams, we've been putting out a pretty decent chunk of some shorts and some gameplay videos here and there when it happens. That's about what we got going on. 6 days of live streams.
Nice. I got next one coming up is going to be a skill tree breakdown, kind of just breaking down everything I learned during my run from level 1 to level 75, and just kind of, you know, what I was happy with and what I regret, and we'll hopefully get something to talk about for the expeditions and where people are going to be respecting their stuff. I want to thank everybody here for showing up. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, leave a like, leave a comment, you know, all that fun stuff. Peace.